We are live. Take us off,
Welcome,
Jarrett.
everybody. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This is the 435 Wrestling Podcast. I'm Jarrett Morrill, and I'll give Clint a chance to introduce himself.
Sure. My name's Clint Burnell. I'm brand new head coach of Green Canyon Girls Wrestling, so pretty excited for that. A little bit of my history is I coached at Green Canyon the boys actually the last 3 years, and before that I coached at Bountiful High for about 4 years, and that's where I wrestled as well. So I'm excited. I love wrestling. It's one of my passions in life. Coaching wrestling, everything about wrestling, trying to develop wrestlers and teach people how to learn some discipline and all those fun things that come with wrestling.
Yeah, thanks, Clint. So I'm Coach Jarrett Morrill. I am the head wrestling coach boys coach at Ridgeline High School. I've been there since the school opened, so getting into my 10th year now. It's been an awesome experience starting a new school, coaching at a brand new school. I've learned a lot there in the beginning, did a lot of losing, and I've learned a lot about what doesn't work, and um, slowly started to learn what does work. So, but it's been an awesome experience, and I've got a lot of wrestling experience like Clint. Wrestled all growing up, wrestled in college at North Idaho College, and then got into coaching after I wrestled there for 2 years, and just excited to be a coach and in Cache Valley, and so really the reason why Clint's a good buddy of mine, and the reason why we've discussed starting a podcast is because I've been approached by parents many times of boys who started wrestling when they were freshmen in high school, and they've told me, "Man, I wish I got my boy into this sooner. I wish we knew about wrestling sooner." And usually, what happens is those type of families, they get their younger siblings get into it a lot younger, thanks to that older sibling. And so, really, what we're hoping to do here is raise the profile of wrestling in Cache Valley, get more people to know about it, um, what opportunities there are for wrestling, but also just to know like what is wrestling all about. There's so many life lessons that you can learn, lessons about resilience and toughness and good sportsmanship and things like that. That in wrestling they're almost like an everyday occurrence, and so we're hoping to share those stories with more people and make more people aware in the hopes that more people want to join a wrestling team.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. It's going to be exciting to kind of share like some of the stories from wrestlers that you've coached, that I've coached, and even just that we've wrestled with, right? I mean, and raise that profile of the wrestling in Cache Valley because wrestling's been a historical part of Cache Valley, I'd say, right? We've had a lot of great wrestlers come out of here and out of Utah in general, and some of our goals too is to hopefully get some of those wrestlers onto this podcast, and they can share a little bit of their story as well. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say I think wrestling's in a pretty healthy place in Cache Valley. Um, healthier than other places for sure, but we just want to see it grow even more, and get more people aware of it. Um, so yeah. But the topic that I want to start, and unless Clint, was there something else you wanted to say there?
let's jump into the
Okay.
first, the meat of the first episode here.
All right, let's do it. So um, a big thing I hear all the time, for why parents don't want to get their kids into wrestling is weight loss. Wrestling has this bad rap, this stigma that if your parents like to think, um, you know, I had this friend in high school who was a wrestler, and he walked around all day in a sweatsuit and spit in a cup, and he, and because I saw my friend do that, I told myself I'm never gonna let my kids wrestle. I hear that type of story, or some variation of that story, all the time. And um, the first thing there is that is a true part of wrestling's history. But wrestling is changing. The culture of wrestling is changing, and we'll get into why that's happening. But um, that's kind of the thing of the past now. So in probably the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, maybe even the early 2000s, a lot of wrestlers would wear weight cutting as kind of a badge of honor.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of like the more weight I can lose, the tougher I am. You know, and so that was a real significant part of wrestling and wrestling culture. But that's starting to change. So, um, Clint, if you want to kick off
Yeah,
and some
I mean, I
changes
remember
with
in high
me.
school, my teammates with a bag of Skittles and a bottle, trying to spit in that and get everything. And I'd say just we've evolved, right? I mean, with just how freely information passes nowadays and how everything's just being improved constantly. We're in a world of improvement at one of the fastest pace ever, right? I mean, information travels so fast that we know the best methods to do things now. And so I think that's a big benefit for our sport as in other sports, right? I mean, I've been kind of looking into like weightlifting and a lot of bodybuilding stuff lately and listening to how people did things back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s compared to how they do it now. I mean, it's just crazy how more effective we are nowadays. And I think weight, when it comes to cutting weight, we'll go over some of those right now. Why we're so you know almost anti cutting weight to a certain point, right? To do it the healthy way.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think maybe first what we'll dive into is the guidelines. The NFHS is the national governing body that oversees high school wrestling in the United States, and they have come up with some guidelines or some guardrails to kind of make sure that people don't try to cut too much weight. And let me be clear. I mean, there are definitely weight cutting still occurs in wrestling, but when I say wrestling's changing, it's nowhere near what it used to be. You know, instead of people trying to drop like 20 pounds, it might be 5 pounds type of a thing. So 5 pounds is cutting weight, but that's a far cry from trying to lose 20 pounds. Um, so I want to read a rule from the NFHS rule book, and then we'll kind of just discuss that a little bit and what that means. And I think a good thing about this segment too is a lot of times for new parents, or maybe even not new parents of wrestlers, but if you're just getting into high school wrestling, you may not be familiar with the rules because it's only since about 2008 when these rules were implemented, my senior year of high school, if I remember correctly. And before that, it was kind of a free for all.
Yeah.
But then these rules got adopted. So in the NFHS rule book, um, so we're on Rule 1, Article 5 says, Section 5, Article 1, excuse me, says, each individual state high school association, so for us, that would be the UHSAA, shall develop and utilize a specified weight control program which shall discourage excessive weight reduction and or wide variations in weight, because this may be harmful to the competitor. Such a program should be planned to involve the wrestler, as well as the parents/guardians, appropriate healthcare professional, and coach in establishing the minimum certified weight class. An ideal program would be one where an appropriate healthcare professional would assist in establishing a minimum weight class through hydration testing, body fat assessment, and a monitored descent plan. Minimum body fat should not be lower than 7% for males or 12% for females. So now that I've read that, Clint, maybe get into what does that look like in practice for high school wrestlers?
So I put that up on the screen there too, so everybody can post that up as well. Um, a lot of this, well, I guess to kind of start though too. So what that looks like for us is every year we go in and we have that test, right? So we come in and have that test at the beginning of the year, so they kind of have a trajectory for what they're able to do. I mean, the biggest thing that I'd say for, I guess, to answer that on practice for us is that, I mean, we're not, practice isn't weight cut. Practice isn't to cut weight, right? Practice is to practice. Practice is to get better. Practice is to focus on, the skills we're trying to develop on how we improve our positions nonstop. But practice isn't to cut weight.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I like telling my wrestlers is we're a wrestling team, not a weight cutting team, right? We don't want to spend the majority of our effort losing weight because, I mean, honestly, if you're focused so much on losing weight, you're not focused on getting better at wrestling, and that's what matters the most. But I did want to add on the testing that Clint alluded to. So at the beginning of the season, it's usually like after 2 weeks of practice, a trainer comes to your high school, and they test your urine. You have to be hydrated to do the body fat test. And so you pee in a cup, they test that your urine has to be what they call 1.025 specific gravity. If you're above that, then you're too dehydrated. And they have a little instrument that they put in the urine and it gives them a readout. If you're below that, then you're hydrated enough to where your results on the body fat test can be reliable for how much body fat you have. So you got to be hydrated first. Then they have you step on a scale. It's called bioelectric impedance. And basically, there's a little algorithm. So they put in if you're male or female, they put in your age, they put in your height, and then it has a scale that weighs you. And all those things calculate together and it spits out an estimate for your body fat percentage. Right? There's no way to know someone's body fat percentage for real unless you were to cut them open and measure it that way. So anytime you're measuring, you would die. So, so that's not possible. But so any body fat measure is an estimate. But they use those factors to spit out an estimate of what your body fat percentage is.
They put your height in too, right?
Yeah, I forgot to mention, but yeah, height's part of it as well. And so based on all those things, they spit out what that estimate is. And like I said there at the end of the rule, if you're a boy and you have less than 7% body fat, you are allowed to wrestle, but you have to get a physician's clearance, which basically means you go to a doctor. The doctor says, yes, you're not abnormally skinny or, it's not unhealthy for you to participate in wrestling, and you're allowed to wrestle. I always get a few wrestlers every year, probably 2 or 3 that need that physician's clearance.
Just the lower weights a lot of times. You got like your...
Yep, exactly. It's usually your younger guys because the algorithm as you get older, it factors in that you have more body fat. Whether that's true or not, I don't know exactly how accurate that is, but that's what the formula spits out. So, but yeah, it's usually like your freshmen, sophomores in the lower weights, the ones that are long and lanky that need that.
So nothing to worry about if it happens to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I was in high school, I had to get the clearance.
Yeah.
1 year, so I was perfectly healthy. I just happened to be really skinny when I was that age. So.
I remember mocking one of my teammates because he was like 10% body fat. I'm like, oh man, you're so fat, because you're high schoolers. You just tease your teammates about everything, right? So.
Yeah, he had a 6-pack.
Yeah, he did, obviously, right?
Yeah, because 10% is pretty darn good.
So let me ask you a couple questions then. So since this is my first year doing it as a head coach of the girls, so I'm excited to see all the stuff that happens. But what's your best? How do you prepare your wrestlers then for this test?
For the test?
Yeah.
So you're supposed to, obviously you got to get them hydrated. You want to drink plenty of water throughout the day. You don't have to load on the water. I've had years where guys knew, like the year before, I had a kid who didn't pass hydration. So the next year he was like, I'm going to pass it no matter what. And he drank so much water um, that he weighed more than he should have. And it actually didn't let him drop down a weight class according to his weight descent plan. It kind of hurt him.
Yeah.
And so I tell the kid, get hydrated, drink plenty of water, but don't like drink so much that you add 5 pounds. Like if you drink like 1 to 2 pounds of water and your urine is clear, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna be hydrated enough. So now if you are somebody that you're trying to get down to a weight class, you might want to take a month or something to try to do a healthy weight descent. But you don't ever want to try to do like in 2 or 3 days losing the weight before that hydration test, because you're probably going to come up not hydrated enough, and then you have to redo it if you're not hydrated enough. So, but I did want to touch on, for the girls it's 12%. So if there's a girl who has less than 12% body fat, she's got to get that physician clearance form, which again, not a big deal. Doctors usually look at it like, yeah, you're fine, you're healthy enough too. But what that weight plan does is whatever you weighed, and they look at what you weighed and how much body fat you have. So if you have less than 7% for boys or less than 12% for girls, you can't drop a weight class. So whatever that weight was, you're locked in at that weight class. If you're over those thresholds, they come up with a formula for how fast you can drop weight. And what it works out to be is 3% of your body fat. Now, thankfully, us coaches don't have to do the math on that. There's a spreadsheet that they do for us that says, on this such and such date, you can weigh this, such and such amount to go a certain weight class. And we just have to plug in the weights, and then there's a formula that does all that for us. But it tells you how fast they can lose it, how fast they can get down. So just a quick example, if somebody weighs 200 pounds and they're losing 3% a week, sorry, I said that wrong. It's 1.5% a week, excuse me. So if they weigh 200 pounds, it would be 3 pounds, right? So if you weigh 200 and you're trying to get down to 190, after 1 week, you can weigh 197, 2 weeks, 194, 3 weeks, 191, and so on.
And you have to make that every week, though, right? So every time you weigh
Correct.
in, you have to do that because, as we know, we compete 3 times a week a lot of times, right? Thursday, a duel, and then a tournament typically. So you have 3 weigh-ins. So.
Yep, exactly. So if you weighed in higher, like you were supposed to be 197 and you came 198, it resets how soon you can get down. So yeah, you want to make that weight as you're descending.
And for like newer parents too, I think it's important to recognize, as they start wrestling more and as our practices get harder, or maybe they're just getting into wrestling shape, right? They're not used to wrestling, so it's a different exercise than coming from football or whatever, maybe cross country that they'd come from in the fall. They start hitting that winter sport, they're gonna lose weight. Like it's just naturally gonna happen with just how the vigorous activity of wrestling. It's bound to happen.
Yeah. I mean, wrestling is so much cardio. Like it's different than cross country where you're pacing yourself. It's like a 6-minute sprint almost, where you're using every muscle in your body. So yeah, kids naturally lose weight all the time. They just get leaner, right?
Yeah, just healthy part of it. So.
Yep. So let me see. Was there anything else on the rules? I think actually we covered that pretty good.
Yeah.
So there's rules in place to make sure that guys don't try to lose, or guys or girls try to lose too much weight. But another reason why the sport of wrestling is changing with weight loss are some famous examples of high-profile wrestlers, both in the NCAAs and also in the international wrestling. Clint, I don't know. Do you want to touch on some of those?
I mean, just to kind of go briefly into it, like let's talk about Kyle Dake for a minute here, right? 4-time NCAA champion, Cornell, just an absolute stud. And he's the only 4-time national champion to do it at 4 different weights, right? And I can't remember what year it was. Was he a junior when he wrestled Taylor?
That was his senior and Taylor's junior.
It was his senior year. Yeah, and crazy, right? Like I can't imagine, you're changing your weight, going up and wrestling, probably a stud, right? And they had wrestled before in high school. And I think Taylor had beat him in high school as well. Like I think Dake got the better of him in college. I think like 2-1 or whatever, right? 2 wins, 1 loss, something like that. But in high school, I think Taylor had beaten him at high, some big tournaments.
Yeah, I don't think Taylor ever did beat him in college, if I remember right.
I thought he beat him at the All-Star one. I'd have to double check though, or at one.
I want to say Dake won that one as well.
He might. He probably must have that. I'm gonna search it up real quick. You can talk about it for a second because I am curious.
Well, it's this was 2013, his senior year, but there's been 4-time national champions, 3-time national champions, and so on in the history of wrestling, and most of them are like at the same weight class, or maybe you bump up one weight class for like your junior or your senior year. And what made Kyle so unique was he started at 141 freshman year, 149 sophomore, 157 junior year, and 165 his senior year. He's the first guy to ever move up one weight class every single year and win a national title. And a lot of people would look at that and say, well, you won it at 141. Why not stay there? You can win another one. But Kyle didn't do that because it was hard for him to stay down in weight. And so he went up to 49, had success. And I think he just started to realize, hey, I can wrestle better at a higher weight. I'm getting stronger. I got energy. I'm healthy, So that was probably one of the biggest turning points for weight cutting in the sport of wrestling.
You are right. He did never lose to him in college. For some reason, in my mind, I thought I saw that he had, but no. And those are some phenomenal matches. So we do recommend that you go and watch those as well.
Absolutely. So, Kyle Dake, David Taylor, who Kyle Dake beat in the famous match, but David Taylor's another famous example because of what he did in international wrestling. He was about 165 in college his senior year, and couldn't after college went on to try to make a world team, make an Olympic team, and couldn't crack the lineup. Couldn't get past Jordan Burroughs.
Yeah,
eventually he goes up, 74 kilograms, and eventually he listens to his body and he bulks up to 86 kilograms. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but 74 kilos is what, like 165-ish?
163.
163.
And
then 86 would be 189. So that's a big jump.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking over 20 pounds, 26 pounds, something like that. But he put on healthy weight. He got stronger and had a ton of success.
Yeah. Multiple-time world champion, Olympic gold medalist, right? So it takes time to put on that kind of weight as well. And something to add, too, I mean, I'll say on the international level, they cut weight a lot less than our high schoolers will, right? But they still have a lot of great practices that, David Taylor had a YouTube channel going on about his most recent world championship at 86 kilos. It's like that's a year ago, maybe almost 2 years ago, about how we cut the weight and talking about hydration and stuff. So a lot of great resources out there to view as well.
Yeah. So things are changing, right? I mean, people are watching Kyle Dake, people are watching David Taylor and seeing the success that they've had moving up in weight. And I should mention Jordan Burroughs too, right? Who was 74 kilograms for like a decade.
Yeah.
Got beat off the team at 74, but goes up to 79 and wins a world title there. And then he's kind of stayed at 79 kilos for the last little bit. And so just showing again and again that guys can have success at a higher weight class. So pretty cool.
Yeah.
I did want to bring up one example of weight cutting backfiring. Just in our 2024 Olympics in Paris, there was a wrestler from India. Her name was Vinesh Phogat. I probably didn't pronounce that correctly.
I'll butcher it too, to be honest.
But forgive me. So she wrestled at the 50 kilogram weight class, advanced all the way to the finals of the Olympics. The preliminary rounds were all held on one day. The finals were on the following day, and you have to make weight the second day. Well, she had tried to cut so much weight and couldn't get back down to weight the second day for the Olympic finals. And so didn't get to compete in the Olympic final. And they actually, you might think that they would just give her the silver medal, but they actually stripped her, and she didn't get stripped her of any medal. And so she didn't even get an Olympic medal, which is kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah, terrible. I mean, I remember we were talking actually when that was all going down, and we weren't sure what was going to happen if, because it was against Hildebrandt, right, in the finals.
Yeah.
Wrestled.
Yeah.
So we were like, does Hildebrandt just get the gold? Like, how does this work, right? But no, she had to wrestle, and just crazy, very unfortunate.
Yeah, if I remember right, they told her initially, "Hey, you just get gold."
Yeah, you just get the gold.
So she kind of mentally celebrates, and then a couple hours later, they come back and say, "Oh, never mind. The girl she beat in the semifinals gets to be in the finals," and so she had to mentally, get back in the zone, which would be tough to do.
Taking it back to the '90s, where you can lose and still get the Olympic gold medal, right?
Yeah. Don Smith, baby.
Yeah. But.
Yep. Or Kerry Colott with their crazy backroom decisions. Right.
That's the story for another day for sure too. I mean, prolific wrestler have some adversity going through there after you win it, right? So
yeah, wins a match, and somehow they come back and tell them, "Never mind,
Never
we rescored it, and you lost."
Oh, I can't imagine that. He's a champion. He's a champion to me, right?
Yep. Well, I getting back on our weight cutting just a little bit. Want to share a story, and I can't speak for every high school coach, but I can speak for Ridgeline High School, and I think a lot of schools are doing the same thing. But this last year, I had a wrestler who was thinking about going down to the 126-pound weight class from 132. He had enough body fat to do so, and so we were working on getting him down. And he didn't qualify for 126, but he was losing the weight on the descent plan. Still had to wrestle at 32, so he went out and wrestled a match. This was against Malad High School in a duel, and just came out super flat. Didn't look like himself. Didn't wrestle normal, and lost the match that he probably could have won, but he just wasn't. He wasn't active like he normally was, and got beat by a kid. And so after that match, we had a conversation. Is this going to work? Are you going to be able to lose weight and be competitive? And we decided that he was going to be most competitive at 132, right? And that was kind of an ongoing conversation that I had with him as a coach was, how you feeling? Do you want to go down? Do you want to go up? Where can you be most competitive, right? Because being competitive isn't just about being bigger, right? And I think that's kind of the old school way was just be bigger, right? Because of course that's an advantage, right? That's why guys like to try to cut weight, but that's only part of the equation. Like, you got to also have energy. You also got to be able to move, right? Because for a dual meet, a lot of times you wrestle within an hour of weigh-in, right? And in tournaments, you get usually a two-hour turnaround, but that's not a lot of time to recover from a weight cut. So, but anyway, so with this wrestler, we decided to leave him up at 132, where he felt stronger and more energetic, and he competed much better at 132 last year.
And that's really interesting too. You talk about kind of how he didn't feel that great, cutting down as well. What would you say are some of the best, like kind of on this topic of, hey, you are cutting weight, you're not feeling great. What are some of like the foods that you tell your wrestlers to eat when they are cutting weight or when they after weigh-ins, right? Because I think nutrition kind of goes hand in hand with this as well.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I have a few things that I like and think work. I'm sure a trained nutritionist would probably have some even better answers. But the first thing I'll say is you got to eat.
Yes.
This is one that drives me nuts. Kids are like, I got, even if it's like 2 pounds, they'll be like, I got to lose 2 pounds. I'm not going to eat like a full day before before
Yeah.
weigh-ins, right? And that's one of the worst things you can do
Yeah. You're
because
dead.
you don't eat, your body goes into starvation mode,
Hmm.
and you get sluggish and you have no energy, and you actually need energy to lose weight,
Yeah.
right? And that makes sense when you say it out loud, but in the mind of a high school kid, sometimes he just thinks, I just got to shut off all food, and well, now you feel sluggish. Now you're not going to have the energy to go, break a sweat that
Yeah.
you need to get a pound off, type of a thing. So you got to eat. Now, you might not eat lunch. You might just say, I'm going to skip lunch and eat after weigh-in, type of a thing. Um, but you gotta eat,
But you wake
right?
up
You
that
gotta have energy.
morning. You're at the dual meet. You're not weighing until 4 o'clock. Have some yogurt, right, in the morning. Maybe have a little bit of
Eat an egg,
an egg or some oats, right?
piece of
Some quick
fruit.
oats, whatever, maybe something small like that. Get you going. Drink some water, right? And then, after you've realized, hey, I still got 2 pounds to lose. Guess what? I got energy now, right? That's an easy get a sweat going and keep the sweating, right? Because that's a big key too. I mean, and then we'll probably touch on some of this other stuff on other episodes. How to cut weight, right? How to
Yeah, absolutely.
diet and plan throughout your season and stay on track because you know it's part of wrestling.
Yeah. But yeah, that I mean that I think we touched on some good foods there. Some people like peanut butter and honey, peanut
Yeah,
butter and jelly right after a weigh-in, type of a thing. I think you want some simple carbohydrates, a little bit of protein, something with electrolytes in it to kind of help your body recover and get ready to warm up and wrestle pretty soon after weigh-in.
yeah, probably avoid the Panda Express. You know,
Yes.
it's always my favorite
Yes,
after a
you're
weigh-in. I see the kids just over there. I'm like, my parents brought me Panda Express. I'm like, well, let's avoid that next week, all right? But
well. Here's a funny little anecdote. When I wrestled in college, I went on my mission, and somehow on my mission I forgot all the things that I like to eat right after I would weigh in. So I go and weigh in at my first tournament in college, and we had stopped at a grocery store, and I bought like a half gallon of chocolate milk. Who doesn't like chocolate milk, right? I was thirsty because I've been, getting a little bit of sweat off. So I go and weigh in, and afterwards pull out my chocolate milk, and I'm just like chugging it. And one of my teammates looks at me and goes, "Man, you must have an iron gut to be chugging chocolate milk right after a weigh-in, and you got to go wrestle." And he's dead right.
Not my
And so I go
brightest
out there,
idea.
not my brightest idea, and I get out there and wrestle, and felt like I had concrete in my stomach that first match. I
Oh
felt
yeah,
so sluggish. So, wouldn't recommend chugging a bunch of dairy or milk right after a weigh.
probably
They
not.
something water based. Yeah.
Yeah, get some electrolytes
So
back in you.
yeah. So, but just to wrap up, and if you got anything to add on this conversation, but um, if a new parent was to come to me, or a parent that was concerned about getting their kid into wrestling because of weight cutting, was to ask me, I would say the days of cutting weight for 3 or 4 months straight and trying to drop, 10, 20 pounds, something like that, are past. Um, there's guardrails in place, right? You can't even do that if you wanted to. But, there's times where, as a smart coach, you're going to analyze and say, yeah, my kid could lose more weight, but he might be a better wrestler up the weight class, right? So those days are gone. Coaches are trying to put their kids where they're going to be most competitive,
Yeah.
where they're going to have energy and be strong, right? Because Usually you don't want to put a kid up a weight class if you don't have to, right? Sometimes that might happen just the way your lineup works out. But for the most part, you're putting kids as low as possible, but where they're energetic. And so usually that's not going to be making a kid lose 15 pounds. That's usually the maximum we're talking is like 5 pounds, or if he's like a 200 pounder, maybe that's 10 pounds. But our lightweight guys, they're not losing more than like 5 pounds.
They're not. Yeah, it's much healthier now. And I'll even add to that too. If you're a new parent getting your kid into wrestling as well, their kid's going to be stronger. They're going to be a better athlete because wrestling's great for you. It's great for the body. It's great for the mind. It's great all around. I mean, look at how many NFL players are wrestlers, right? Look at how many of our college wrestlers and guys on the world team. Because let's be honest here, there's not a lot of money in wrestling, right? You see a lot of the guys. You have to be the top, half percent to make a living pretty much wrestling, and then it's nothing compared to an NFL salary or anything like that. But we got guys on the world team here going out trying out for NFL teams with really no football experience, but it's just because they're phenomenal wrestlers. So
yeah. You look at famous example Stephen Neal, who didn't play college football, but tried out and got on with the Patriots and won 3 Super Bowls with them. Micah Parsons, one of the best defensive ends right now for the Cowboys, was a wrestler growing up. Ray Lewis, the Hall of Fame linebacker for the Ravens, was a wrestler, and so as a wrestling coach, I love it anytime I get a football player, and I'm sure any other wrestling coach out there would tell you the same thing.
Yeah, hands down, it's going to be good for you.
So, I think, should we call it? Does that wrap it up?
I think that wraps up our very first episode. So if you made it this far, we appreciate you. Thank you. Spread the word. We're going to try and do these more often. And I think some of our future topics that we'll do next are going to be some of the rules, right? Cover some of the basics for parents, athletes, that they can come in and kind of get to know some of the questions here. And I can vouch, I know that Jarrett is very proficient at the rules. And our, competitions against them always has that rule book handy. In fact, he saved us actually this last season on one of those rules. So, we'll be there to help and make sure everybody's well versed.
Did I save you a team point?
Yeah, it was that team point. Remember with the double. The technical or whatever it was,
Ref tried taking 2 away.
Yeah.
Well,
we still lost.
I'll just say I have scoured that rule book because you don't win very many arguments with the ref.
No.
Yeah, but anytime you know the rule and can apply it, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But thanks for tuning in. If you listen this far, and share this with somebody who's thinking about getting their kid into wrestling, or maybe if you've been in wrestling, hopefully you learned something about the weight loss program that you didn't know before. So, thanks everybody.
Thank you.